Kenjaku was finally having his first major fight of the series in Jujutsu Kaisen, and with this fight we've actually learned a lot about his technique outside of chaos manipulation. And when I say a lot, I mean only a little bit, but in comparison to what we've had for the entire series, it feels like a lot. But with this fight, I've been seeing a lot of fans talking about who would win in a fight between Yuta Okkotsu and Kenjaku, and it's a fight that I am ridiculously excited for, and I believe it will happen at some point. I believe that's what Gege is building up to right now, and it will happen at some point in the series. So in this video, I'm going to try and put a definitive answer to who would win in this age-old fight of youth versus experience. We'll start off by listing the powers and abilities between the two fighters, trying to figure out which of the two will end up getting the upper hand in their inevitable fight. Starting off with Kenjaku in the red corner, a sorcerer with over 1,000 years of experience, someone who has the ability to hop between bodies, affording him something of a diet immortality, and throughout his experience he's been seen in multiple bodies, including Noritoshi Kamo, Yuji Itadori's mother, and now most recently Suguru Geto, who was a special grade sorcerer, as well as an unnamed body that we see him inhabiting when he is speaking to Hajime Kashimo all of those years ago when Kashimo was searching for the strongest sorcerer in the land. And if you didn't know, we can tell that Kenjaku inhabits these bodies based on the unique scar on the forehead. That's how we know he is inside of a body, basically. During his time as Noritoshi Kamo, not that Noritoshi Kamo by the way, this Noritoshi Kamo, he became known as one of the cruelest sorcerers around, and that is a pretty prestigious title to hold considering Sukuna literally exists and is literally known to have basically killed women and children and compared them to maggots crawling around on the floor. Pretty brutal stuff, but considering that Noritoshi Kamo was considered the evilest sorcerer around compared to Sukuna, that's a feat in and of itself. On top of that title, he became proficient at creating cursed womb death paintings, and he is basically the father of Choso, Kechizo, and Iso, and he's also basically the mother of one Yuji Itadori. Yeah, Kenjaku is one of the weirdest villains that has ever been written into the pages of manga. In his most recent body takeover of special grade sorcerer Suguru Geto, Kenjaku has acquired the ability of chaos manipulation, which allows him to control and absorb chaos spirits 2 levels or below without any consequences whatsoever, and use them as he sees fit. On top of this, he can control cases that he beats and dominates, or even steal cases from masters that he has killed and control an army of chaos spirits if he so wanted. On top of this, there seems to be almost no limit on how many cases he can absorb and control. In fact, in the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 events, Geto used a technique known as Maximum Uzumaki, in which he used a combination of over 4,000 chaos spirits to fire a large blast at Yuta. In fact, it was actually 4,461 chaos spirits, and it's said that that wasn't even the full amount that had under his control, considering half of his forces where he was fighting Yuta and the rest of his spirits were fighting Gojo and the gang. With chaos manipulation being his primary technique for the longest time in the series, Kenjaku has also access to other techniques, which he has somehow managed to copy, meaning Kenjaku has access to idle transfiguration, an unnamed gravity technique which he has used multiple times in his most recent fight against Choso and Yuki Tsukumo, and it's deduced by Yuki Tsukumo that although he has access to these absorb techniques, he is only able to use them once due to him not having an external storage unit similar to how Yuta does. And she also notes that his gravity technique must be his original technique outside of the body swapping technique that we are already familiar with and previously has been made known to us. But because Kenjaku can only use these techniques that he has found from previous bodies once, he has to be extremely careful with how he uses them, meaning one wrong step and it's game over for him. Now, if you're wondering why Kenjaku can use chaos manipulation all the time as opposed to a one-time usage, that's because Kenjaku's brain's innate technique is the body hopping technique, and the body that he is inhabiting has the technique of chaos manipulation. Now, when the brain of Kenjaku is inside of the body of the possessed, he can use the possessed's innate technique as much as he wants, as if it was his own technique. Kenjaku the brain, however, that innate technique is body hopping, which can only be used by the brain itself. However, once he swaps bodies, previous techniques that he has managed to store and copy somehow can only be used once, which is why he uses them so carefully. So in summary, Kenjaku at the moment has 3 techniques: body hopping, allowing for a diet version of immortality, his own unnamed gravity technique, and then Suguru Geto's curse manipulation, as well as reverse curse technique, if we count that as a separate technique. As it stands right now, he may have many more techniques stored for an emergency use, but we'll just have to wait and find out to see how that goes. And then if all that wasn't enough, Kenjaku has his own domain expansion, all-encompassing Garb Hadhatu. At the moment, it is unclear of this domain's effects and its powers on the opponent, but something that we can see is that Kenjaku's domain is very similar to Sukuna's in the sense that it doesn't create a barrier and instead is more akin to an artist painting on a canvas and bringing it more into real life and reality. So right now, here's the stats for Kenjaku as it stands going into the fight with Yuta Okkotsu. We have body hopping technique, however he's not really going to be able to use this in a fight. Gravity manipulation, that's what we'll call it for now. Curse manipulation, 1000 years of experience, high battle IQ, as well as a high general IQ. I mean, the man was able to seal the strongest sorcerer in the verse currently, and he almost made it look easy. He has a domain expansion and then reverse curse technique. Next we move into the prodigy of the series, special grade sorcerer Yuta Okkotsu, a man who is a distant relative of the strongest sorcerer in the verse, Goju Satoru, as well as a descendant of Michizane Sugawara, who is said to be one of Japan's big 3 cursed spirits and is a notable name in the Jujutsu world. Yuta Okkotsu on his own has a massive reserve of cursed energy, even having more than Gojo himself. This allows Yuta to dominate battles with an overwhelming presence that even Yuji noted was way more sinister than Gojo's cursed energy presence. In fact, according to Maki, Yuta single-handedly dominated a previous year's Goodwill event in the school, meaning he bested Ao Todo, Kamo Noritoshi, and Mekamaru. All are notable fighters, Todo alone being an absolute force of nature who was taught by Yuki Tsukumo, one of the 4 special grades in the series, showing us that from a young age, Yuta Okkotsu was no pushover and was learning the art of Jujutsu sorcery at an alarming speed. Yuta's main way of dominating an opponent in front of him was by tag teaming with Rika, a special grade vengeful cursed spirit who stuck around even after Rika Orimoto's passing in the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 events. Rika has endless amounts of cursed energy as stated by Suguru Geto in their original meeting in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Rika is in and of itself an absolute powerhouse, dubbed the Queen of Curses by again Geto Suguru. Yuta can maintain a connection with Rika for up to 5 minutes through the ring that he has on his hand, and in those 5 minutes the following is possible for Yuta Okkotsu. Curse technique usage, meaning Yuta can use and copy techniques used against him while Rika is present. Curse tool storage, Rika acts like a storage unit for curse techniques and curse tools, and then while connected for those 5 minutes, Rika will refill Yuta's expended cursed energy for those 5 minutes, meaning he basically gets an endless cursed energy refill for 5 minutes until the connection is gone. The techniques Yuta has used and copied that we've seen so far are the following: Shikigami usage, as he used his hair to create miniature heads of Rika herself to attack Takako. Then we have cursed speech, a technique that he used immediately creating a powerful wave of death when he first fought against Suguru Geto in the Jujutsu Kaisen events. And then also finally a copied technique that he learned from Takako Uro, sky manipulation. And then while it's not a copy, it is very similar. Yuta is also shown outputting cursed energy in a similar way and level to Ryu Ishigori. And on top of all of this, Yuta is extremely proficient in hand-to-hand combat and swordsmanship. And then if all of that wasn't enough, going one step further, Yuta also has his own domain expansion, and similar to Kenjaku's, while we've seen it be activated, we don't actually know what it will do. And while I'd love to sit and speculate on this ability, it's not really going to help us in this video to do so on who is potentially going to be the winner for this fight. With all this being said, let's compare the 2 sorcerers and break down who is the potential winner for this battle. Both Yuta and Kenjaku both have domain expansions, and then the both of them both are able to use reversed curse technique to heal themselves, as well as their own versions of copy technique. While Kenjaku's copy technique are a one-time use, excluding the body's innate and Kenjaku's innate techniques, he only has the one time to use the copy techniques to his advantage. While Yuta can copy techniques with Rika, the only drawback being is that he has 5 minutes to use said copy techniques to try and blitz his opponent into submission or death. Kenjaku then possesses an unnamed gravity technique where Yuta doesn't. Yuta has the highest amount of cursed energy in the series, and while Kenjaku does have an immense amount of cursed energy, he doesn't have the option to refill his cursed energy in the same way that Yuta does when he is connected to Rika. Both Yuta and Kenjaku are proficient in throwing hands and weaponry use. We've seen this before because when Yuta and Suguru first fought, Suguru was using Playful Cloud to throw Yuta around in their first original fight, and as we know, Kenjaku basically inherits all of the abilities and strengths of the body that he inhabits. Realistically, this fight is going to be ridiculously close and down to the wire, and the only way that I see Kenjaku winning this fight is by surviving Yuta's initial blitz. He needs to wait for Yuta to use all of his own cursed energy, and then somehow needs to survive those 5 minutes where Yuta is connected to Rika while he is getting blitzed here. If Kenjaku manages to survive all this and then pulls out a gravity technique or his own domain, then I think Kenjaku most likely takes this home. However, if Yuta comes to this fight ready to throw absolute hands with murderous intent, as he has already stated, and blitzes Kenjaku within these 5 minutes, even using his own domain and showing us what that can do, there is the potential that Yuta takes Kenjaku's head clean off his shoulders, and it's GG for all involved. But that is everything from me. Let me know what you think of the video in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure that you've turned on the notification bell, as it really does help out the channel. And if you want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member, as that truly does help me out. But as always, that is everything from me. Much love, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.